back to order. The mooring presentation. Are we ready? Mr. Johnson-Stott?
Sure, I can kick it off. We have with us Greg Frazier is here, the MES director, and the town manager appointed a working group. This was really initiated by Dan Shearer and some others who have over the years expressed concerns about unused moorings, and so what the mooring working group did is tried to look at the specific issues of unused moorings and the lack of movement in terms of the waiting list and folks lingering on the waiting list for many years, and enforcement was a question. And so we took a look at that, and you have in your packet the recommendations that the group came up with. The working group was comprised of 5 of us, or 6 of us, I guess. It was the town manager, myself, Greg Frazier, Joe Netto, Dan Shearer, and Rich Carl. And Dan and Joe both representing current mooring holders, and Rich Carl representing one of those folks lingering on the waiting list and wishing that he had a mooring. So with that, I don't know, Greg, if you want to come up and just walk the board through the recommendations that we came up with. And I'll just say one final note by way of introduction, that what we wanted to do tonight is just give you an overview of the recommendations that came out of the working group, and if it's something that the board would like to pursue, we would have a hearing and bring it to the board for future action.
Great. Welcome again.
Welcome. Greg Fraser, MES Director and Harbor Master. As Peter talked about, the committee, the working group limited itself basically to the problem of unused moorings and tried not to get into the general discussion of the mooring regulations, because those were done in 1997, and for the most part, those mooring regulations, I think you have that in your packet, they're pretty straightforward. They match or are very close to what most of the towns on the Cape have. So what we really wanted to do is not get into a discussion of general mooring regulations, but try to figure out a way to, or multiple ways to address the unused moorings. And if you look at the recommendations, there are a couple. One of the big things that the department did several years ago was solicit comment regarding the practice of transfer. Transfer is a big issue with lots of towns. We are on the side, like most towns, that we allow a pretty general, have a pretty general transfer policy. It allows to family members and has a broad definition of family members as well. The good part of that, obviously, is that moorings are generational. The bad part is, if you're don't have somebody in your family that has a mooring, you're going to sit on one of the town wait lists, and you're going to sit on those wait lists for a very long time. So one thing that has brought to our attention, we've talked about it many times, is lateral transfer of moorings. Lateral transfer of moorings, legally you can transfer a mooring out of one family and into another family. That family's not waited a day on the wait list. It's perfectly legal. It just has to be done in 2 steps. We have informally limited transfers to 1 time a year. You'll see in this packet that we're requesting that be a formal recommendation as well, to slow down that process, because we've had 3 or 4 requests from the same people, same family, to transfer a mooring. It starts over here, and by the time they're done, it's completely in a different name, and that none of those people waited. Waitlist people say, where did this mooring come from? Well, they did it legally, but now it's no longer in the person's name that waited on the wait list. So we have 2 options for your consideration regarding transfers. One would be a little less controversial. That would be to not allow lateral, but allow up and down, so that if anybody wants to turn it over to the children, or they could go the other way. That doesn't happen very often, but usually it's handed down to the children. Fine. That was the number 1 comment we got, was don't touch that. We really want to be able to do that. But not allow the lateral transfer, because the lateral transfer is the one that switches it into a different family name. You can do less aggressive or more aggressive. One way would be to apply a different standard to anybody who does not have a mooring at this time because they haven't had that right to lose. If they're on a wait list or they want to put their name on the wait list, they haven't lost the transfer because they don't have a mooring now anyway. So if you wanted to be more aggressive, you could say anybody that has a mooring at this point, when you adopt the regulations, would fall under the family transfer non-lateral, or, and if you get one in presumably 2018 now, because we're not doing new assignments, a new threshold would apply for those. You can do that. It would be a lot easier to implement if everybody was under the same one, but it could be done. The other is our office deals with on a regular basis is requests to add names, not so much delete names, but add names, add multiple names. Right now, we only allow 2 names on an account for the same reasons that we've been talking about. There's no fee associated with that. However, there is administrative work associated with that, and we do get a lot of those requests. So we were proposing to move forward in the fall fee schedule with adding a fee for transfer. That was one of the recommendations. The final part of that top section would be to formalize or memorialize the fact that we only allow people to do one change within a 12-month period. The other thing we talked about is we have people now that understand that the amount of enforcement that we're able to do because of the staff issue, we're just not going to be able to go back and re-inspect over and over again the same areas that we inspect. So, we do have people that on a regular basis lend out their moorings. When we do get in there and catch them, they're issued a citation, a warning, and then a citation. I've had people come into my office on regular occasions say, well, you caught me 3 times, that was $150. That's not a bad deal. I'll do it. Catch me next year. It's not a $50 deterrent. It doesn't work. People understand that. And if we're fortunate enough to get back the second time or third time to re-inspect, another $50 citation. So we're proposing to change the fee structure for the citations to make it a little bit more of a deterrent. Mm-hmm. The biggest change would be something we don't actually need any approval to do because it's already in the 1997 regulations. It's just a matter of implementing a pilot program. Pilot program would be essentially, I think you have the page where you take somebody off the wait list and assign them to an unused mooring. So somebody we'd reach out to the mooring holders, ask them, if you're not going to use your mooring for any reason in 2018, it would have to be the whole season, you can allow us to take somebody off the wait list, use your mooring. They'll have to sign a waiver, obviously, so that the person that owns the tackle is not responsible. There's some other things we would want them to do is have a new, fresh inspection to make sure the tackle isn't going to fail or as best we can. And then we take that person off the wait list for that one season only. They maintain their position on the wait list. They don't come off of it. And then renew, and they can do that process until their name comes up. The idea is, in any given harbor, on any, this year seems to be particularly bad. I think it was probably because of the weather, but we're doing our inspections right now, and there is a very large number of unused moorings right now. Then some people just aren't going to put in their boats. They know that in advance. I think in the past there was a fear. Well, if I get into this program, it's a way the town's going to take away the mooring. That's not the idea. The idea is just to allow somebody that has nowhere else to put their boat to use your mooring, and then that's only one year, that person's off, and then basically you can use your mooring the next year. Mm-hmm. The only thing we talked about there is somehow working on a mechanism so the person coming off the wait list would pay the fee instead of the person that's not using the mooring.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah,
Doug?
because you're allowed to let your mooring not be used for a year, right?
Well, under the current regulations,
Yeah.
it's not, you either have to have a boat assigned to it, or if you get rid of the boat for any reason, you have up to a year to replace the boat assigned to the account.
Now, under the pilot program, if you said, I'm not going to use it this year, would you be required to use it the next year, or could you continue to loan it out indefinitely?
We talked about that, and we did not want to say only 1 year. The only caveat was that the person allowing their mooring will have no say whatsoever of the person that gets assigned it.
Right.
And it has to come off the wait list. So could it be multiple years? Yes. If, you know, we did talk about that a little bit. We didn't foresee a huge problem with someone saying, you know, just, I'm not going to use mine for the next 5 years. Could it happen? Yes, it could happen.
I have a question.
Doug?
How often does a mooring need to be inspected?
Every 3.
And so the people, the potential sharing, people that would be potentially sharing would benefit by having somebody that wanted to use it pay for the inspection, so maybe that's an incentive.
Well, the outline would be that because we do 1/3 of all the moorings staggered every 3 years, the mooring would have to stay within the harbor cycle. Otherwise, we'd have moorings all over the place.
Right.
So this would be an additional inspection. And the reason we do that is because the mooring regulations require that if the tackle is worn more than 25%, it needs to be replaced. Well, that's a judgment of the inspector. If it were very close to that amount and we did not require that additional inspection, you know, that person that's taking over that mooring for a year, I wouldn't want to put my boat on it. Mm-hmm. Even though it technically passed inspection, it's not new.
Peter?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the status of current regulations. The regulations require that you have a registered boat associated with that mooring, not that you have to put the boat in the water. So you could have no boat in the water theoretically for a decade and be in full compliance.
Yeah, we have people, you know, I know them, everybody knows them that have their boat in Florida. They decide for whatever reason not to bring it back up, but the boat is registered to the mooring. They have to also pay the applicable excise tax. If it's subject to excise tax, lots of boats are not because of the size or the value.
Okay, given the hour, I'm going to thank you for the presentation and ask if this could be posted on the website and comments sought. And then, great presentation, good information.
Thank you.
And the board will take up at a later date the potential implementation. This is a representative of a lot of good work, a lot of considerations, and very appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say 2 quick thoughts?
Sure.
One is, I guess I would be tougher. I don't know why they need to have a transfer a year. I could see a transfer every 5 years. And I could also see, you said the $50 fee for mooring, loaning it out when they're not supposed to. I could say, yeah, $50 fee the first time, second time you lose it. I mean, I could see a little bit harsher and saying, no, it's against the regulations. If you've loaned it out and we told you not to, you get 1 strike, second strike, then you're going to get the waiting list.
And we, at the working group level, we had that discussion. And, you know, the current regulations, we could be much more stringent than we are. And if the Board of Selectmen feel that the policy should be 1 strike, you're out, or 2 strikes, you're out. However it is, we'll enforce that. This was just because we had bumped up the fee structure so dramatically, we were hoping that that would send the message that we're not going to tolerate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I
Appreciate
know a
it.
lot of work went into all of that. Thank you.
Great. Next, we have vote to support an application for CPA funding for installing an east-west bike and pedestrian path connector from Trotting Park to Trotting Park Road on town land. And I just want to mention at the outset that we had a request from the schools. They do want to have an opportunity to comment, and also someone who's on the rec committee also was unable to attend, but also had some comments that I think everyone from the board got. So with that, I want to ask Scott to go ahead. Appreciate you waiting so late. Sorry it's such a full agenda.
Way past my bedtime. I'm Scott Lindell, the chair of the Falmouth Bikeways Committee. Tonight, I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for entertaining to approve one of the first initiatives in the bike plan that you approved a year or so ago. And that's approving for us to apply to CPA funding, as you said, to construct a pedestrian and bicycle path between Trotting Park Road and Trotting Park. But first I want to sort of go back just a little ways to describe the planning and visioning and approval process that we went through starting back in 2014. So this bicycle plan, Falmouth's bicycle plan, was carefully crafted and started with a widely publicized survey in 2014 of over 200 Falmouth residents regarding their attitudes and needs concerning bicycle transportation and recreation. Soon thereafter, the town planner and the manager with consultation from the Bikeways Committee, we contracted with the Cape Cod Commission for technical services in September 2014. At that time, the Bikeways Committee kicked off a planning process and a widely publicized presentation and brainstorming workshop in the Herman Room in the Falmouth Library with over 100 participants that included DPW staff, town engineer, town manager, selectmen, policemen, school teachers, bike path walkers, and people of all ages and abilities who ride bikes for various different reasons, from recreation to transportation to exercise. The director of the technical services, Glenn Cannon, and the senior transportation engineer, Lev Malikoff, from the Cape Cod Commission, helped lead the workshop, and then they participated, those two folks participated in over 15 public meetings as a part of the Bikeways Committee monthly public meeting, posted meeting. The Bikeways Committee met and consulted with the town engineer probably a dozen times over this 2-year process of the planning. We consulted with the Falmouth Police Chief and other police officers. We currently have a police officer and Falmouth resident on our Bikeways Committee. We met and gave presentations to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce leadership, to the T-Ticket Civics Association, to the East Falmouth Village Association, we did that again last week, to inform and incorporate feedback into the plan. In each of these meetings, our vision of an east to west, mostly off-road path was met with widespread enthusiasm and support. We attended the meetings of the Recreation Committee and received their formal endorsement for creating a trotting park connector. That was back, you can look at the minutes, in January 2014. It was motioned by David Watson and seconded by Dave Jarvis. So they unanimously approved this plan for connecting Trotting Park Road to Trotting Park Fields. I personally met with the abutters in 2015, and again, more recently, I met another one. Finally, we presented the product of all this groundwork and feedback into a refined bike plan to a joint meeting of the Select Board and the Planning Board in February 2016, and it was universally well received and formally voted upon and approved by the Board of Selectmen in April 2016. So regarding the Trotting Park Road and connector, so for the past 2 weeks, I've offered a tour to all the members of town government that I could think might be useful, the Selectmen, Town Manager's Office, the Planning Board, Planning Department, Department heads at DPW. Wanted them to see this path for themselves. I know it's a busy time of year, and only one, Doug Brown was able to make it. But I did create a little video that would be helpful for the public in general, as well as those seated here, to understand a little bit what it looks like. So if you wouldn't mind, Chris, we're going to just play the first 90 seconds of this. The full 4 minutes takes you all the way from T-Ticket to the Shining Sea Bikeway. But we're just concerned with the, you can turn the music off. So here I am at the crossing near McDonald's. And I want to point out that there isn't a sidewalk on the other side. That is a parking space, and so we need to talk to Mass DOT about doing something about that. So now I'm approaching Trotting Park Road. This is the middle of the day on Sunday, so a lot of traffic. And you'll see that there's a sort of a sidewalk here, but it really could benefit from a fog line because it's hard to know where the road starts and where the sidewalk ends.
Wow, he's
Now we're on a curve. Yeah, we speed this up just so you get a sense. This is about 1,000 feet from Route 28 to where we propose to put a crosswalk. So I'm pointing right now at where the town owns a piece of land across the street here, where we'd like to see the crosswalk. And obviously there need to be an apron and some fill here to reduce that slope. And this is town land we're on. We've talked to DPW about an 8 to 10 foot wide path here. And this is all town property. We'd probably obviously do some pruning too. This is a pretty narrow path right now. But this drops you off right on the trotting track around the fields. And historically, you'll see that there used to be actually bike races on here between the trotting races. This is a quote from, here's a little connector that takes you up right to the skate park and through the parking lot, and we can cut it there. This would take you all the way to Gifford. Sorry? There's the baseball field too, yes, good point. Not just soccer, and lacrosse and other things that they play there. So what I want to point out is this is about a third of a mile from where I started to Trotting Park. The alternative for a pedestrian or a cyclist is almost a 4-mile trip. It would take them up, all the way up Trotting Park or all the way up Homestead, along Brick Kiln Road, and then down Gifford. You know, they're kind of dicey there. That's a 45-mile in a speed zone. So typically that would take a moderately fit cyclist about 20 minutes to do instead of the 4 or 5 minutes that it took me. It would take a pedestrian an hour to do that instead of 20 minutes. I think these kind of shortcuts, if you will, not only take people in safer access to these recreational areas, it's also more pleasant. I mean, they're in open spaces. I think there'll be more encouragement for people to exercise and be more proactive about their active transportation rather than driving. And there is a segment of our population that obviously can't drive. A lot of kids under 16 that use those fields and the skateboard park from East Falmouth would have better access. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. If I could just comment just briefly. You know, I know that it happens like this because it's just human nature, but that until sort of something's right in front of us, we don't sometimes pay attention or respond to it. And I know that we have a lot of folks here from the Trotting Park area who heard about this and who wanted to come in. But I just want to, you know, I really do want to thank Scott and the Bikeways Committee. They have been working on this for a long time, and I know it's under the big heading of Bikeways Plan. So, you know, if you're not coming to the meetings, you'd never think it has anything to do with your particular, you know, neighborhood. But, you know, these are public meetings, and this is just a further, you know, piece of that process. So, you know, I don't want anyone to get that feeling that this was, you know, snuck in somewhere. This Bikeways Plan has been going on for a really long time. It's just that it's not on anyone's radar really until, you know, pieces of it are being implemented. So I do want to thank Scott and Bikeways for trying to reach out to have some discussion on this. And I know it's been in the plan for a long time. So.
Cynthia? Welcome.
My name's Cynthia Rose. I live at 68 Trotting Park, right next door to the place where the bicycle went. Today, I am speaking specifically, after being here at this meeting, about plans that were implemented a while ago and how are they effective today. There is a lot about this Trotting Park connector that, in discussion with people, the basic response is, you must be crazy. The hazards from Trotting Park Road are so deep that it's difficult for the residents of Trotting Park Road to get in and out of their driveways and to make a left-hand turn. We all know this. What we also know is that the concept of connecting Trotting Park Fields, which is in and of itself an area of great historic merit and should not be left unplanned as we grow so actively in population, in vehicle choice and density, without an overview to how do these spaces link together. The Mara Vista Park, Trotting Park, Goodwill Park. Now, all of that is part of what the selectmen would decide. Why I'm here is to specifically tell you, in case you don't live in T-Ticket, which on the Bikeways map plan, it's marked Falmouth and East Falmouth. T-Ticket and Trotting Park is not even labeled on the map, because anyone who goes up and down that road knows it's incredibly dangerous. It's going to take more than fog lights, the Mass DPW or DOT, to get a road that is antique, sloped, and spits out into the most dangerous intersection in Falmouth, in my opinion. It seems like poor planning and something that will have to be cleaned up later. I think we've seen a bit about this. But let's talk about our neighborhood. Yeah. Okay, this is a very special neighborhood. The people who have lived on this street, some of their family, are the people who this walk path around Trotting Park is dedicated to. There is still a cultural history that is rich and unbroken on Trotting Park Road, despite the speed of the vehicles, the amount of tourist and commercial traffic that goes through. And this neighborhood spirit is something that I think other streets would want to have. And one more slice through our neighborhood is possibly the very thing that will help disintegrate what is most important about living here in Falmouth. That you can reach out to your neighbors, that you can talk, and that you can stand with each other and say, this is important. It's not that any of us are against happy times on bicycles. We are against bisecting our neighborhood against the greater good of all, which in my opinion would dictate a bike path straight up Gifford Street where the food pantry people, the steamship authority people, the high school people, satellite parking, it makes a lot of linear sense. Once that is accomplished, and this plan has moved forward to where we are now in time, not where we were, then, and only then, with a master plan for a 22-acre site of historic importance that is, again, older than some of our finest buildings here in this town, is planned properly and not just subject to an addition here because it was part of something then. So I thank you very much, and I cannot stress enough how I think this would be a terrible injustice to the people of this street who have lived and worked in this town and continue to, and many cannot be here tonight because they are working. That's very important. And this path is not necessarily warmly greeted by those people, yet I see the room in a long term for developing a plan that can meet bikers of all skill level, and it would take a certain professional to navigate Route 28 across from McDonald's. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Please. Oh, yeah. Yeah, please.
Good evening. My name is Mary Bishop. I live at 45 Trotting Park Road and have been there for nearly 60 years. So I know what Cynthia's saying about our neighborhood has changed greatly. And with Trotting Park Fields, I was on the rec committee when we helped convince the neighbors that we needed that space for the recreation. I used to pick strawberries there. Well, of course, that industry is going too. But for the bicyclists to come through that area, such a dangerous area, we have tractor trailers using that as a cut-through. Brick Hill Road uses that as a cut-through. I had an incident where I was going up on Trotting Park Road going towards Brick Hill on the right, and a tractor trailer was coming around that turn, not at 30 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. I had to hit the sidewalk, blew a tire, or he would have hit me, and he kept right on going. Those trucks and tour buses now that go to that nearest motel, they use our road. And they can't pass one another if there's two of them going side by side. It's about 20 feet. And I think one thing that's been left out too is the skateboard park. The kids come up our road and cut through Trotting Park Road onto Palomino to get to the skateboard park. And they don't carry their skateboards. They ride them on the sidewalk. And you've got to be backing out of my driveway, you're looking back and forth all the time because there's either cars, trucks, or kids, and we have a lot of children there. So I really think this plan needs a real good look at again. I saw the gentleman riding the bike from Route 28, but as I understand it, it was going to go down Route 28, down to the lights to Mara Vista Extension, and then all the way down Mara Vista Avenue. I don't know where it was going to end up, but where are bathrooms and things like that? I mean, you know, I think that's a consideration they needed for Trotting Park Fields. They need that badly, and nobody does anything about it. But I really think that if you spend any time down there and see the traffic, that it's not a secret anymore. Everybody is using Trotting Park as a cut-through. So I would hope that the Selectmen would really give it careful consideration and really take a long look. And the bicycle committee, as Cynthia said, I think going the other way down to Brick Hill would be a much safer route because I can't see trucks and cars slowing down when those bicycles are coming out of there, right there on the turn. So I think it needs to have a real good look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bishop.
Thank you. Sir, and Peter next. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ken Costello. I'm in Precinct 1. I'm a year-round commuter. I'm fortunate enough to live near the Shining Sea Bikeway, but that was originally built as a railroad right-of-way. So that is not necessarily useful for someone like me who, my wife and I decided to go with one car to reduce congestion and air pollution, and help reduce congestion and air pollution in Falmouth. But for someone like me who does not want to wrap himself in 2 tons of steel and plastic just to go to the post office or go to the store, for me to get across town, I have to take some time to plan my way across and avoid things. And what you see here, getting from one side of town to the other, is actually, despite the issues on Trotting Park, it's much more advantageous than it is to try and go down Main Street, excuse me, or to pick your way around a lot of the ponds and other things. So I think we need to be thinking about how we're going to be linking communities in town for people who want to move from one side of town to the other and can do that safely and expeditiously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peter?
Good evening, Peter McConerty, Deputy Director of Public Works. I do understand that this, as Scott had mentioned, this has been going on for several years to look at this plan. Scott had come to us in 2014, 2015 to talk about this plan, and back then we told him it was a dangerous plan to do that. The east-west connector coming across Trotting Park, the whole thing. So I just want to be on the record to say that for Public Works, and speaking for Public Works, we believe that this is a dangerous route. If you looked at the video shows us starting on Alphonse Street, somewhere at the bottom of Alphonse Street, coming up, to 28. Didn't look like that busy on 28. It was a sunny day. Didn't look like it was a normal day on 28. Comes across and going up Trotting Park Road. And then when it gets up Trotting Park Road, there's this loop, and it stops here next to the fields. The main goal is to do the east-west connector. So if kids that are going to the games or kids that are going to the skateboard park, they're not going to stop here. They're going to want to go over to Goodwill Park. They're going to have to cross Gifford Street. It's a 45-mile-an-hour roadway, and you're in the hills and the curves over into there. And then ultimately, they want to get over to the bike path, which would be crossing Palmer Ave. So that's that whole east-west connector complete. What they're doing here is they're looking at this piece of property and coming across Trotting Park Road. I'm not here to speak for or against the property and the piece of the cut through the property. What I am here is to just go on the record to say that that is a dangerous area for a roadway on Trotting Park. When I started with the town, Trotting Park Road was the first roadway that I actually worked on with the designer. That roadway is maximum 21 feet wide, but most areas it's under 20 feet wide. It's between 19 and 20 feet wide. You got granite curb on one side, and then you take the striping out of the roadway. So you're actually only talking 10-foot roads, 9.5-foot roads. Very dangerous in that area. Recently we had some residents that were speaking. Now there's a truck route. I did not know that. That was unbeknownst to us as of several weeks ago. But you got trucks going down the road. I knew that there's a lot of landscapers and landscaping trailers going up the roadway. It's a 30-mile-an-hour roadway. Vehicles don't travel 30 miles an hour on that roadway. Vehicles are traveling 40, 45. We've had many complaints of, actually you had someone speak earlier that they bounced off the curb and blew a tire. We've had the same at Public Works. We'd have many complaints that people get them too close up on the edge of where the granite curb is, and they are blowing a tire. So I just wanted to go on the record that over the years we have met with Scott regarding this, and our vision and our decision is still the same. It's a dangerous area to be going up and through that area. In a couple of years from now, it's currently under design right now, but in a couple of years from now, we're going to be doing the transportation master plan. It's going to be going into construction phase, and that's going to involve all of Main Street, Davisville, T-Ticket, and it's going to include bike accommodations all the way down that roadway. So I'd like the board to just take some consideration on this, that we don't jump the gun on. And I know this has been spoken about for a couple of years. One last thing is, as they showed on the video, once you get to Trotting Park Road and you come across Trotting Park Road and you're going to start to cut in with that property, there's probably a 4-foot drop off there. When you get heavy rains, a couple of weeks back, when you get heavy rains, the water is from the side properties all end up into that. If we build that up, we're going to have to do some fancy design there with some drainage or whatever. If we build that up, that water's going to backflow onto those abutters, and then we're going to have problems. Public Works is going to have problems with the abutters with the rain coming on. So that's just a comment. But I just wanted to go onto the record for the decision to say if they go for the CPC funding on this, that the way it's designed and the true intention to get across Gifford and over to the bikeway, Public Works were not in favor of it.
Just a couple of things in response to your comments. So I am aware of the flooding issues there, because I remember Ms. Rose saying that she was literally boating in her backyard, so that certainly is a concern. The other thing that struck me in the video, which I'd already watched at home, which I thought was great, is Scott actually, he's a terrific model and example, gets off his bike, walks across 28. How often do you see folks not doing that? They're in a hurry, they're trying to expedite, they don't want to hold up traffic. There are a lot of those issues, so I do understand the safety concerns. While he's here, any questions for Mr. McConaty? Doug?
What is the actual roadway layout of Trotting Park Road?
The roadway layout of Trotting Park Road is 40 feet wide, but the roadway is not centered within the roadway. The actual roadway is not centered within the layout. It's shifted to the east a little bit more. So if you take a look at it, we actually squeezed, when we put that sidewalk in, the original sidewalk went up about, a little further than this area, went up about 1,600 feet. When we did the reconstruction, we brought the sidewalk all the way up to Brick Hill. And what had happened is we had to take some easements from some of the residents, and we also had to go in and we had to work the sidewalk, the house that the residents right on the corner of Brick Hill Road and Trotting Park Road made out very well. The only way that we could put a sidewalk in is we had to put him in a keystone, actually segmental wall. It's a beautiful looking wall, and he planted all in front of it with hydrangeas, but it's probably about 4 or 5 feet deep, 4 or 5 feet tall. If we didn't do that, we would have had to fill in half of his backyard. So the roadway is not centered within the layout. So those were some of the restrictions that we had the last time we worked with.
So is there room for some widening at the end, probably by the 28 end, to create a shoulder and a little safer
On which side? On the east side?
on the side opposite the sidewalk?
That side is basically right up towards the houses. I mean, that would have to be something that, I mean, we could take a look at it. I know when we reconstructed it, we had to move a lot of street furniture, a lot of walls, utility poles had to be moved. We had to move some fences. It was expensive. That was an expensive roadway that we did. Doing that whole roadway was well over, I think we were pushing the $1 million mark. It's $800 to $1 million mark, so.
Question on the trucks. I know that Mr. Finneran had brought up before a lot more truck traffic with folks' GPS, and I think that you had mentioned, or maybe Mr. Suso, it had been you, that there is a mechanism for getting commercial truck drivers to use a different GPS, and that this Trotting Park Road would be taken off that to try to address some of the traffic issues along with, signage. Is that something that could be worked in with the rest of the upgrade plan in that area?
Part of the transportation plan. So basically what it is every so many years we get, there's actually companies out there that do the GPS truck routes for commercial truck drivers. You have residential and you have the commercial. And they will contact the town, or they'll send an email to the town and say, do you have any restricted roadways in town? And we received one in 2015 from the motor carrier, and we don't have any dedicated truck routes or mandatory truck routes or wayfaring in Falmouth. So basically the trucks right now they can go where they want. One thing that we would like to do and we would like to look at is doing this master plan is to come up with some wayfaring and come up with some truck routes, come up with some delivery times. It's amazing on Main Street. You come up into Main Street and you see some of these trucks going down to Woods Hole to get on the boat. Those aren't normal trucks. Those are large lumber trucks. They're hitting all the elm trees, the branches on the way down the roadway. Could be 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's at all times. I did not know that Trotting Park Road was being used as a truck route. It was mentioned at the last meeting. So that's something we might want to, I don't know what we can do about it until we put a plan together, but that's something we're going to want to take into consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. McConney? Doug?
I mean, I'm so much in favor of trying to come up with the east-west connector. I think what you were hinting at before was this might work, but getting further west is really problematic with Palmer Ave. That getting a crosswalk at Palmer Ave to get to Goodwill Park, so you can get to here, is we're stuck with that road being a 35-mile-an-hour zone, and they won't let us put a crosswalk if the traffic is going that fast. Is there really any way that we could be using from the steamship to Catherine Lee Bates across Lawrence School, so using the school property to Hamlin Avenue to get to Dillingham and get across that way and still get an east-west connector that I know is more on roads, and I know one of the issues of this is an off-road bike path, which is great. That's a little bit more on roads, but I just wonder if there's any possibility, because that is a place where the speed limit's down to 25, and so bikes crossing there, I feel safer at Catherine Lee Bates and then getting across.
Yeah, well, right now, the bike, it comes off through the steamship lot and goes down Catherine Lee Bates. We did Catherine Lee Bates over in 2010, and we lowered the speed limits 20 miles through that school zone. And it's very effective. Those flashing lights are very effective. People usually, they catch themselves and they slow down. Once they get to Gifford Street, the lower end of Gifford Street, there appears to be some wider areas for the bike. That's something we might be able to adjust with the striping to get them up to Dillingham. you're not dealing with the
Could you
heavy
even put the
trucks.
bike path across Lawrence School and say, come off of Kathleen Bates on the sidewalk, and then go across the field and get to Hamlin, to Dillingham that way, and avoid, you'd never be biking on Gifford. You'd cross Gifford
Yeah.
at Dillingham, but you wouldn't, or at Dillingham, but you wouldn't have to actually bike on Gifford.
Yeah, I'd say that that would have to be more of a question for the school department.
Sure.
In recent years, we did Alphonse Street over, we had some drainage problems down there. And before the lift station even went in down there, we had some problems with the drainage down there, and the buildings were getting flooded. And we were working with the school down there to do some type of connection, how far we can go into the school. And they were concerned of
People-
bikers being able to go through the school property. So
Okay.
I know it's town property, but I think it's under school control, and I think that would be more of something to
Security
discuss
issue
with
for
the
them. Megan?
I just, I think, one thing I'm concerned about, and I think folks have raised a lot of different, doing anything like this is really complicated, but one thing I'm concerned about is folks are using this path anyway right now. People are cutting through there. We've seen presentations about individuals who are commuting.
Just a minute. Ms. Braga, go ahead.
My concern is that, folks are cutting through, and we still have issues of safety on Trotting Park regardless of what happens with that path. So, I think there are two connected conversations that are happening here, but they're separate, which is the safety of Trotting Park as a street, period, whether or not there's a bike path that gets people going through there, or whether or not folks are cutting through there on their own. I've been to bikeways. There are lots of people who commute and cut through there. It's certainly not as popular as our Shining Sea bike path by any stretch, but, so I just think in the long term, there are concerns about that area being utilized casually that remain, because Trotting Park is a dangerous street.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to, and I mentioned, we actually met with the Public Works, myself, the town engineer, and highway super, and actually met with Scott on Friday. And I said that, what I did say to him is, if individuals want to get on bikes and they want to go down Trotting Park Road, that's, if they want to do that, they can do that. But if the town makes a conscious, concerted effort to approve an actual path, that's basically saying, the town is saying that we are saying that this is a safe route, not for the bikers here in the room tonight, but for everybody, people that want to go to the path and want to go to the skateboard path. So that was just one of the items that we mentioned. Once the town makes a concerted effort to say that this route is safe and they show it on a map, then,
No, certainly, I think, yes, point well taken. It's a vastly different situation.
right.
I want to give folks who are here time to see. Sir, if you would just introduce yourself at the podium.
I'm Lou Romizer. I live at 84 Trotting Park Road, right on the corner of Palomino Lane. And the kids are always using that Palomino Lane going down to the skateboard park right beside my house. Cutting through other people's private property to get over there. Don't get me wrong. But the question I had for Peter was, figure out a way, Beagle Lane. Is Beagle Lane a legitimate street in Falmouth, or is that a private street? Private road. Is it a private road? Okay, I was just wondering, if it could be detoured down that way, right across from the post office, right near the post office. But I have the concerns that everybody else has here. Two trucks go down that road, going by each other, you're on the sidewalk, you get yourself on the grass, or you're gonna get afraid to get hit. I've replaced my mailbox 4 times. Four
Well,
times
they'll
I've
fix this
replaced
way
my
now,
mailbox on Trotting Park Road. It's dangerous. It's dangerous if you can't widen that road and get a bike path where 2 bikes can go, one go in one direction, one go in the other direction, past each other without getting in the roadway. I'm serious, I've lived on that road for 56 years. I've lived in that house. I was born there.
I understand you've seen a lot. Thank you. Allison, please.
Hi, Allison Leschen, Lantern Lane. I want to respond to a couple of things that have been said, but then talk a little bit more generally. So it sounds like, as Peter alluded to, and as some of you neighbors have said, Trotting Park Road sounds terrible. Like, we should really do something about the trucks and the speed and all that. But I think that saying we shouldn't have this because that's a dangerous road, that doesn't follow for me logically. I think we need to look at other traffic calming measures, whatever those are. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I know they exist. Get the GPS thing figured out. But what you need to realize is that people are doing this anyway. And that if we don't do this, you're basically condemning bikers to, instead of biking 1,000 feet on Trotting Park Road, having a designated crosswalk and then a designated cutover off-road, two things happen. You're either condemning them to go all the way up this really, really dangerous Trotting Park Road, to Brick Hill, which is also a terrible biking road, and then down Gifford, also a terrible biking road. So that's happening now. So saying, well, we can't do this because we don't want people biking on Trotting Park Road. People are already biking on Trotting Park Road, but they're doing much, much more and much worse than that. So this would really minimize their exposure on that dangerous road. Also, I think by saying that by building it, we're condoning it and saying it's safe, I would almost argue the opposite. If we are bringing up all these safety issues that we as bikers are facing, and you don't do anything about them as a town, I would think that would open you up to more, liability or responsibility or whatever. And so, again, I'm not a lawyer. The town attorney might have something to say about that, but that doesn't follow logically. The other half of what I was going to say, you're either condemning people to use the dangerous road, or you're condemning them to not be able to bike because they don't have the nerve to do that, and they're afraid to do that, and there isn't a safe alternative. So you're really limiting you're really limiting the number of people in town who can use bikes as a viable means of transportation because you're not willing to do just a few little things to make infrastructure work for bikes. And to me as an avid biker, yes, okay, that it's incredibly frustrating. But I think just as a general resident of the town, as somebody with a kid who plays sports or whatever, somebody who doesn't want to drive as much, who can't stand the traffic in the summer, we should be doing everything we can as a town to make this town really bikeable. And mostly it just takes paint and attitude and commitment. And those are all pretty cheap. This will require a little bit more engineering and so forth, but everything I'm hearing is we can't, won't work because of this, won't work because of this. I would love to see us really hold out a vision of this as a truly bikeable town and to say, how can we, instead of we can't.
Thank
So
you.
that is what I would
Mark and
like
then
to say.
Patty?
Thank you, Allison.
Mark Finner in Precinct 6. I know that Peter said that they get requests from the GPS companies, but and this has been an issue before this bike path ever came up, I don't see why we can't have a no truck sign on either end of Trotting Park Road, at least for preliminary. And if the town is doing a comprehensive plan, and this idea came from some of my neighbors, isn't there any short-term plan that could, because you're probably not going to get the state to give you a crosswalk where they want it anyway, to cross at the hospital lights, go up Jones Road, cut over and go through St. Joseph's Cemetery and come down Beagle Lane, even if it's just temporary until the plan comes through and, it kind of mitigates this. And I just want to point out again, once a week, Trotting Park loses the mailbox, and once a week, usually at night, there's somebody driving down the road with a flat tire trying to make it all the way home because they hit the curb. It is a very dangerous road.
It is appreciated.
I had like 30 inch to 3 foot trees the edge of my property, I took them down because I didn't want to wake up in the middle of the night with somebody stuck into the tree. I'd rather have them hit my stone wall and cushion it a little bit, but anyway.
Thank you.
It's
Patty?
not the finest.
Appreciate that. Patty? And then Kevin?
I'm Pat Johnson. I live on Wild Harbor Road in North Falmouth. I do bike trotting park. What I think we really should be asking tonight is how can we make Trotting Park Road safer? And that's what the question should be. How can we do that? And we need to do it, and we need to put the link in because everybody is going through there anyway, whether it's Palomino or whether it could be where we have the property. And I have reread, like Mary Bishop said, that when the time we were bought Trotting Park, there was a tremendous amount of support from the T-Ticket Civic Association and letters from the family that sold the largest part, the 23 acres that we bought for Trotting Park. They were so grateful that the town had bought that and it would be preserved for the use of the town. And I think, so if we look at that as a big picture, tell us how we can make, and put some no truck signs on that road. I think we've got to step up and do something.
Thank you. Kevin, you're going to be the last speaker on this issue tonight. I said at the beginning the school department wanted to weigh in. T-Ticket school community expressed some concern about the connector plan, and the board was going to give them that opportunity. So this matter will be continued, particularly given the late hour, but you've had your hand up for so long, I just wanted to be sure I saw it.
Well, for many years, I've been using this path here, and where we want to put the path is, and it's a grass strip there. The DPW bought that years ago, seeing that was going to be a connector to Trotting Park. And it seems to me that, and I'm a bicycle rider, is that they don't think I can ride safely on Trotting Park. I've never had a problem at all on my bicycle. I don't ride on the sidewalk on the one side. So I think this is a great connector, and I don't think there'll be much of a problem if we put this in. Because the bicycle is, I don't advocate putting kids on bicycles on in there, but for bicyclists, this is just like any other road, so. And I think that we should build a road in that area, and because it has all those good things to go, because if the kids can get there, they can go to the Trotting Park, they can go to the skateboard park, they can go to the Little League Park, and with no traffic at all. And what we also need is to go down to Goodwill Park. If we can put a crosswalk there, going into Goodwill Park, we can make it all the way over there. And I agree that it's difficulty getting across Route 28 on the other side of Goodwill Park, but I think we can work that thing through too. So I think that we should, put the road in there on Trotting Park, going to Trotting Park. It'll connect the town, so.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Scott, final word, and then we'll take one more because I understand you came just for this reason, and then I'm sorry, but we're going to continue this matter to the next meeting.
I have a comment and a
Scott?
question. Yeah, comment and a question. It sounds like a lot of the issues that have been raised tonight can be handled with some thought and planning around engineering. Certainly enforcement seems to be a big issue on Trotting Park Road as well. I have a question about what the bearing of the school committee comment might be on this Trotting Park connection. How could that be
I think just an important group of folks to hear from.
I don't understand how the school's not anywhere near where we're talking about putting this connector.
I'm going to give them the accommodation of listening, giving them an opportunity to weigh in.
Right.
And we also have a lot more people that wanted to speak as well, so we're just continuing
Yeah,
this.
there were a lot of people here earlier
Right.
tonight,
I
too.
know, yeah, and we did receive emails, just so, folks know that we did receive emails from other individuals who, I think the chair stated, who are in the rec committee, who were raising some other concerns, albeit at sort of the 11th hour, but noted that they could not be here, but were raising, just a number of issues, so I think.
And I do note that I was copying a lot of letters, not just from cyclists, but from dog walkers and soccer coaches and people who skate, and so it's not just a biking issue. This is a
It's an important.
this is a connector issue and a transportation issue.
Absolutely. Last speaker?
I'm Maria Fernanda Lopes. I live on 32 Trolley Park Road. I've been on Trolley Park Road since 1965. There's been a lot of changes on Trolley Park Road. And talking about today's fields, the fields were sold for conservation, preservation of the little animals. Everything exists in the woods. Only this spring, I saw a pair of deers from my window. We have all kinds of animals. We still have coyotes, but the deers, they out to pass, I guess, the coyotes. We have the rabbits, we have snakes, we have fox, we have all kinds of birds. And right now we have a bald eagle. So if the bicycle path comes on that area, they have to cut so much, because it's not going to be a little narrow thing for the bicycles. It's going to be a big thing, so a snow mobile remover, they're going to come and clean everything up. So all those animals, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen with the kids in the neighborhood? The ones we don't need for them to go to the skate park. We have a better entrance from Gifford Street. I think that area should be left alone for conservation and keep the Trolley Park Road safe. We need a lot of repairs. 8:03 this morning, there was a 18-wheeler. It came by my road. I have those drains for the water, and they made me jump. They go kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And it's not peaceful in there, no? We're going to have millions. They're going to be the bikers, the motorcycles. It's going to be everybody cut into there. So I don't think this is the proper place for the bicycle path. Thank you very much, and take everything in consideration.
Thank you very much. And this matter will be continued to the next available date. Mr. Sousa?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to confirm, it's my understanding that there is a deadline for CPC grant submission prior to the next board meeting. So failing action by the board, there wouldn't be approval to file the application timely, is my understanding.
Is there a Monday between now and the deadline?
I'd have to double check. I don't,
I can answer that.
Thank you.
The deadline's next Monday, April 7th. Well,
Sam?
Along that point, though, I mean, an endorsement letter doesn't have to go in with the application. The application goes in by August 7th.
correct.
But you can collect endorsements letters, until they actually have their formal review of all the applications. So there is an opportunity for us to weigh in later after the application deadline.
True, but I need the cooperation of DPW to produce a budget for this and an engineered design.
the other clarification, this is town property. Selectmen would need to authorize this application.
Okay, and Megan?
Just to be, just to address the elephant in the room, we've just heard from the DPW that at where we stand right now with some of the concerns that we've heard, that they're not going to support this. So if the DPW, you're indicating the DPW has to help you create a budget, correct?
They give me a preliminary budget, but I think we need
I just want to clarify, because I don't know, so if
we voted for it, the DPW would do it, we directed.
Okay.
And
Oh, certainly,
also, Scott just said he has a preliminary budget, so I assume you could
It's not
submit...
sufficient for the application, though.
Pardon?
It's not sufficient for the application, though.
Okay.
When I say preliminary, it's like a round number. Having done this once before and had to pull the proposal for Goodwill Crossing last year because it's not on town property, I'm familiar with what kind of specificity they want. And it's more than what I have now.
I am reticent to not have, since I've gotten a specific request from the superintendent to have input, I'm reticent not to continue this, but I see that the deadline is upon us, and I see there are probably other folks in the audience that would have liked to have spoken as well, although I'm sure we've heard representative comments. I think it's also been, oftentimes the practice of this board not to make a directive or a decision that's directly contrary to the folks who we entrust with these plans, in particular DPW in this circumstance. We also have all of the abutters, voicing, who are here today, voicing concerns. The question now would be, whether the board were to take a vote with that information before us now, which I think, could potentially make it difficult for you to move forward, or to wait and for us to try to submit later input. What does the board feel on that issue?
Well,
Doug?
I could say, having viewed the area that would be used, I can certainly understand Mrs. Rowe's concerns. It's very exposed to her backyard. Potentially, it's really in her backyard. If we're going to go through there, we really need to put like arborvitae screening and a fence, something to make it appropriate for the location.
But that's not going to address the flooding. She was literally in a canoe in her yard.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a nice dry day when I was there. I can't comment on that.
Anyone else want to weigh in on whether we should push this to a vote today without the specifically requested input from the superintendent? Sam?
Well, I think the concerns that the school department would have would be the use of Alphonse Street, crossing back past the T-Ticket School, elementary school. I think that's where their concerns are. I'm not sure.
I think that's what I understand.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I'm not sure that they would have any concerns or particular perspectives on a cut-through, if you will, connector through Trotting Park. But anyway, I'm just speculating. But I think that's their concern, is the path that would take a lot of traffic by T-Ticket Elementary School.
Doug?
Just want to point out that this, when we bought this, it was originally designed with a bike path in this location.
Yeah.
This is not a new idea.
That's correct.
It was 1994 or 96.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first we've heard about it.
Okay.
Does
I've
anyone
lived here since.
want to make a motion on the item on the agenda?
Doug? I know this has been a project that's been in the works for a while. We've discussed it. We're talking about a deadline to get this CPA funding. I'd rather say, well, maybe we're not going to get this year. I think if we voted for it now and went to CPA with the resistance, I'm not sure it would get passed either by the CPC or get passed by town meeting, both of which votes need to happen. I think we'd be better off encouraging that we not try to get for this year, maybe next year where we can get a plan that has more universal support, whether it's this plan or it's some other east-west connector. But I think to have a vote that we vote against it right now would be, I'd rather.
That was part of my concern.
My concern is I think it's just a setup for failure, and because, again, Bikeways has been working on this, as Doug is saying. I mean, I get it, I understand, Mr. Mize, it's the first time you're hearing about it. I hear about things at the last minute all the time, because no one can pay attention to everything that's going on until it's right in front of you. So there's no, that's natural to hear about it for the first time. But I think if we don't start off on a good, a good foot, it sort of poisons the waters, So if we go this time out and there's lots of opposition, I don't know that it's doing any, benefit to the project. And again, I think it's just the way that it happened. It's at the last minute. We've had a lot of input. Maybe some conversations and dialogue can come out of this that helps address some of the issues we've heard about the safety on Trotting Park, period, along with how do we connect that with biking safety, biking, commuting, so maybe this is the start of more of a conversation, but, I agree with Doug that I think it may be rushing it and also just maybe setting a setup for failure. So I guess as much as I support the work that Bikeways has done, I think I'd like to see it just, I don't know.
So we'll take no action.
Stew a little bit longer with folks.
So rather than take a vote, the board will take no action at this point in time, and we'll continue this discussion.
I don't want to vote it down, so I think I would
That's what I'm
prefer
saying.
that would.
Given the amount of support it has, judging by the emails and the comments that I've heard, I think it's something we should find a way to make it happen. I think that if there's improvements that are needed on Trotting Park Road, we should find out what can be done. And as far as the extension and the crossing at Palmer Avenue, they're crossing there now. They're taking their chances. We have to find a way to work with the state, get their attention, and there should be some kind of a crossing.
And Bikeways has been, Scott, I don't know, I've seen a dozen emails on that alone. So, they're doing the work on that piece too, but.
Yeah, we can't do it alone. We need your help.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
same with planning this east-west pathway. You can imagine how frustrating it is.
Of course it is, yeah.
To hear for the first time that the DPW doesn't want to support this last Friday. That's really frustrating, and we need to get the planners in the room to figure something out.
And I think you've heard that this board is committed to finding a way and looking at the various issues and really targeting that as we continue the conversation. So thank you for the presentation. We'll take the letter that's coming, and in that regard, that I think it'll be an agenda item on the next agenda coming out.
If I may, just as a liaison to the Bikeways, since we have some of the folks from Trotting Park here, I'm not on Bikeways, but I would just hope that we continue this dialogue, and I certainly would be, I'd want to hear more.
I'd love to see it go through. I would, if there wasn't a safety issue on Trotting Park Road.
Okay, we can't take comments. We can't take comments from the audience because of this. And we're going to move on.
We have a monthly Bikeways meeting. All of you are welcome to come from Trotting Park Road. Please help us figure this out. It's typically the first Wednesday of the month. In fact, we have one 2 nights from now.
Really?
And you can.
In Town Hall.
We're going to move on.
In Town Hall here, 7 o'clock.
Scott, thank you. The board's going to move on.
Okay.
We still have agenda items. Mary, yeah? If you could come. There's no decision.
Table, yeah, no decision.
Tabled.
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 Table.
And we'll just put it on the next meeting just to hear what the school wanted to contribute, and no decision. Right? Great. I'm just going to stop for 1 second. Yep. Okay. Yep. All right, next we have annual committee reappointments.
I move that we appoint Joseph Quintiliani to the Veterans Council Committee for term ending June 30th, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. We're going to continue the discussion of the Barnstable County Community Survey. I hope you don't mind.
What about the secondhand dealer license?
We're going to do that.
I move the approval of the secondhand dealer license for Harmony Hut.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And next, minutes of meetings.
On page 1 of the July 10th, Chairman Moran called an open session, and then Chairman Jones made a motion. I think that needs to be Chairman Moran again. On line 2.
Okay, any other?
Yes, there are. On page.
Do you want to speak with Jennifer about that, if there are a lot of changes, and we could?
I think we should, because.
Okay, we'll take that at the next meeting. Is that all right?
You can take the inputs, yeah, but, yeah, because I think some of this just needs to be reworked.
That's on
And
July.
there's some names that I've corrected those. So this is July 10th, so if we can bring this back another meeting, I'll give you copies of my edits.
Great. And now with respect to the June 19 executive session,
Yeah.
any
This one-
comments?
Well, minor, but I think this one actually, even though it's an executive session, I think we can approve and release it. Because I don't think there's anything in here, you know, barring anybody else's observation, that hasn't basically been water over the dam.
I don't know, with that
Purchase and sale agreement?
purchase and sale, having just, we're reviewing the executive
Yep,
session
I'm sorry.
minutes.
I'm proposing that we should be able to approve and release this on Monday, June 19th, executive session minutes.
Is the purchase and sale a public record now?
It is.
I believe it is, yes.
So anything mentions in here is mentioned in the PNS.
Right.
All right.
So I move that we approve and release the minutes of June 19th.
All those in favor? Yes, thank you. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, executive session, July 10.
Well, once again, we just have some edits. And there's, on page 2, the first full paragraph.
Right.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think there's some reworking of the language.
All right, so we'll kick those over as well, and you can speak with Jennifer about those
Yeah.
proposed edits.
And my is MIAA.
Right, I noticed that.
Okay. So we postpone those?
Postpone those as well.
So we're carrying July 10th, both open and executive session.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Selectmen's reports? Thank you,
At your
none.
peril.
Okay.
Yes.
Town managers report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see.
I do have
Gotta
a,
find
Oh,
it.
here's mine, good.
have a question.
Yep.
The police department's night out?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
It's
6
tomorrow.
to 8.
National
6
Night
tomorrow?
Out, tomorrow
Thank you.
evening.
And I don't have anything to report from last week, but I'm going to report that I am going to go up to Plymouth on Wednesday and make some comments as a private citizen as what I feel like
The dredging
the
issue.
dredging issue
Oh,
in
yeah.
Falmouth, that I think we're not getting quite the service that we need.
Great. Mr. Suso?
I just wanted to note to the board that you recall a consortium of the 4 Upper Cape towns, which I formed last year with my fellow managers, has been awarded a $135,000 grant from the state to engage a qualified wastewater consultant to explore potential collaborative alternatives with Joint Base Cape Cod. The consulting firm of Wright Pierce has been selected through the procurement process to work with all 4 communities through the end of this calendar year. And this past Wednesday, I was pleased to host the initial meeting with fellow Upper Cape managers and representatives of Wright Pierce. And as this process further unfolds, I'll periodically update the board.
Great, thank you.
Excellent.
And next Selectmen's meeting is set for Monday, August 14th. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about the late.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
With a snore.
Nestled in a classic New England setting, amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing, for all your printing needs.
Green Harbor Waterfront Lodging is nestled in a woodland setting on a picturesque ocean inlet. Green Harbor offers a family waterfront vacation. Enjoy our private boating beach with dock, rowboats, and paddle boats, oversized heated outdoor pool, and kiddie pool. Relax in our waterfront and beachside accommodations. 548-4747 or gogreenharbor.com.